It was one of those nights where the rain doesn't just fall, it pounds, relentless and unforgiving, drumming against the roof and windows like a warning. The wind howled outside, rattling the old panes, twisting the trees until their branches scratched against the siding like desperate fingers trying to get in. I was home alone, the house eerily quiet except for the steady buzz of the TV playing a late-night crime documentary. I wasn't really paying attention to. I had been trying to distract myself, but the storm made everything feel heavier, as if the air itself was soaked with dread. My eyes kept flicking toward the front window. I didn't want to see anything outside, but I couldn't stop looking. The dim streetlight outside flickered with every gust, casting moving shadows that seemed to creep closer. Then it came, a single knock, slow, sharp, deliberate. At first I thought it was just the wind or a branch tapping against the doorframe. I told myself it was nothing, maybe someone lost in the storm or a delivery gone wrong. But then it came again. Another knock, and another, steady, insistent, not random at all. My heart rate quickened and a cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I wasn't expecting company. Not tonight, not in this weather. I checked the clock, 11:17 p.m. No way anyone should be out there. I crept toward the door, every creak of the floorboards sounding like a scream in the heavy silence. My hand trembled as I reached for the peephole, pressing my eye against the cold glass. Outside, the porch was empty, slick with rain, the wet concrete reflecting the dim orange glow of the street lamp. No figure, no shadow. Nothing but darkness and the restless dance of rain. I exhaled slowly, trying to calm down. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe my mind was playing tricks. Then the knock came again. Louder this time, right on the door. A whisper followed. Low and cracked, like dry leaves scraping over gravel. "I know what you did." My blood ran cold. I stepped back, heart pounding so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. Who was out there? How could they know? I considered calling the police, but my fingers froze over the phone. What if no one believed me? What if I was already in too deep? The storm outside seemed to get louder, as if the weather itself was warning. Me too. Run. To hide. But where? The knocking stopped suddenly, replaced by silence. So complete, it pressed against my ears. Then a soft scraping sound, like fingernails dragging slowly down the wood. I pulled back from the door, backing into the darkened hallway, trying to convince myself it was all in my head. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. That whoever or whatever was outside knew things I never told anyone, and they were waiting. The moment the voice whispered through the door, a cold shiver raced down my spine. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my breathing, but the panic was creeping in fast. My hands trembled as I took a step back from the door, the words echoing. In my mind, "I know what you did." What did they mean? What could anyone possibly know? I debated calling the police, but the idea felt pointless. Who would believe me without any proof? The storm raged outside like a relentless beast, and the silence inside the house grew thicker, heavier, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Then came the scratching, soft at first, someone tracing their fingers along the wood grain, but it grew louder, harsher, more deliberate. It was a sound meant to unsettle, to break down resolve. And it did. My phone was on the kitchen counter. The tiny red light on its screen blinked, signaling a low battery. I cursed silently, heart pounding. Could I make it to the counter and back before whoever was outside tried to break in? I edged toward the kitchen, every muscle taut, every nerve screaming. The knock came again, harder this time, and the voice returned, quieter but no less chilling. "You can't hide." I reached the kitchen, grabbed my phone, and hurried back toward the living room only to freeze. The front door handle was turning slowly. I could hear the faint click of the lock being undone. Someone was inside. The door creaked open just a crack, and a shadow slipped through. I couldn't see their face, only a silhouette framed by the pale light of the storm outside. My breath caught in my throat. "Who's there?" I demanded, voice cracking. No answer, just silence. Then a soft step forward. I backed away, heart hammering wildly, searching for something, anything to defend myself. My fingers closed around a heavy metal lamp. The shadow moved closer, and a low, rasping voice whispered again, "You left me in the dark." That was when I realized this wasn't a stranger at all. It was someone who knew me, someone I never wanted to see again. My grip tightened around the lamp, the cold metal grounding me in a reality that felt increasingly unreal. The figure in the doorway remained silent, the storm's fury behind them the only sound filling the space between us. I could feel their eyes on me, watching, waiting like a predator sizing up its prey. "Who are you?" I demanded, voice trembling but loud enough to cut through the silence. The figure stepped forward into the faint light, revealing a face I hadn't seen in years. A face I'd hoped was buried forever beneath layers of memories and regret. "It's me," they whispered. "You thought you could run, but secrets have a way of catching up." 1,000 questions burned in my mind, but the weight of what they said and how they said it left me paralyzed. I wanted to ask how they knew what they wanted, but all that came out was a broken, desperate "why?" They smiled then, a slow, chilling curl of the lips. "Because you left me behind, because you lied, because you don't deserve to forget." The storm outside seemed to grow louder, thunder rattling the windows like an angry warning. Away slowly, but the figure mirrored my movements, never breaking eye contact. The house that once felt like a sanctuary now felt like a cage, a place where every shadow held a memory I'd tried to bury. And tonight, those memories were coming, alive. I realized then that this was no accident, a random knock in the night. This was the reckoning, and I wasn't ready for it. The figure stepped forward, the flickering light from the storm revealing every cruel detail of their face, hollow cheeks stretched tight over bones, sunken eyes that seemed to suck in all light, and lips pulled back in a twisted, bitter smile. This was no longer the person I once knew. This was something else entirely, something broken and haunting. Their voice was low, barely a whisper, but it cut through the storm's roar like a knife. "Do you remember that night?" A cold wave crashed over me. I tried to speak, but the memory hit me like a freight train. The screams, the crash, the silence after, the secret I'd buried deep inside, hidden beneath layers of denial and guilt. "You think you left me behind?" "Forgotten," they said, stepping closer so the flickering lightning illuminated the scars and bruises covering their arms. But I never left, not really. I could feel my breath hitch as the memories flooded back. The accident in the woods, the desperate choice I made to run instead of help, the guilt that ate away at me every day since. "You took everything from me," the figure continued, voice now trembling with rage and pain. "Not just my life, my future, my hope, ... my name. You erased me." The room seemed to close in, shadows growing heavier, walls bleeding darkness. The storm outside thundered as if the sky itself mourned the truth unfolding inside. "I died that night," they whispered, stepping so close I could see the emptiness in their eyes. "But I didn't stay dead. I came back, but not whole. Just a shadow, a ghost of what I was bound to haunt you forever." Their fingers reached out, cold and trembling, but instead of flesh and bone, they seemed to dissolve into smoke, tendrils of darkness curling around my arm, cold as death. "You thought your silence could save you, that forgetting could erase the past. But the past never forgets." A sharp crack of lightning illuminated the room, revealing ghostly faces flickering in the shadows, faces of those who had been lost, forgotten, and left behind. They whispered my name, their voices rising in a mournful chorus. I realized then the terrible truth. The stranger at my door wasn't human anymore. They were something far worse. A revenant. The embodiment of my guilt and the darkness I tried so hard to bury. "You opened the door," they said softly, "and now you've opened the gateway. There's no turning back." The room grew colder, the shadows swallowing the light as the storm's fury battered the windows. Stood frozen, trapped in a nightmare where the past and present collided. The darkness wasn't just outside the door, it was inside me. I had a choice: face the truth and the darkness it unleashed, or be consumed by the shadows forever. The shadows wrapped around me like living chains, cold and unyielding, dragging me toward a darkness I could no longer deny. The figure's eyes locked onto mine, not with rage, but with an unbearable sorrow, the kind of pain that pierces, deeper than any blade. You thought you could run. Their voice was barely a whisper over the roar of the storm outside. But you can't outrun what's inside you. My throat tightened. Words failed me. I wanted to scream, to beg for mercy, to tell them I was sorry, but all that came was silence. The storm's fury rattled the windows, the house groaning as if it were alive and mourning with me. The walls themselves seemed to close in, suffocating, swallowing every light and hope. The figures stepped closer, their shadow stretching long across the floor. I could see now the scars and bruises etched into their pale skin, marks of suffering I had ignored, forgotten but that had never healed. The memories crashed over me, the accident, the silence that followed, the promise I broke when I chose to walk away. You erased me from your life, they said, voice thick with grief. But I never stopped remembering you. Tendrils of shadow curled from their fingers, cold as death, snaking around my wrist like icy vines. I felt the weight of every secret, every lie, crushing me from the inside out. Remember me? They whispered. Remember what you did.
No.
Remember who you really are. I stumbled backward, gasping for air, heart pounding as the shadows crept up my legs, pulling me down into an abyss of guilt and regret. The house blurred, walls melting into darkness. The storm's cries muffled by a growing silence that pressed in like a tomb. Then, just as suddenly as they had appeared, the figure began to fade, a mist dissolving into the shadows, leaving behind only a chilling echo. Join me in the silence. Their voice lingered, haunting and cold, or live with the weight forever. The door slammed shut behind them, the lock clicking into place. I was alone. But the house no longer felt like home. It was a prison, haunted not by ghosts, but by the darkest parts of myself. I sank to the floor, shadows whispering secrets I wished I could forget. The storm outside began to fade, but inside me, a tempest raged, a storm of guilt, fear, and an unrelenting truth, because some secrets never die, because some knocks never stop coming, and because sometimes, a stranger waiting at your door is the part of you you can never escape.